Good evening. Can I see the next slide? Thank you. I want to do three things. We seem to be doing everything in three tonight, so I'll just continue the trend. The first is to talk to you a little bit about this photo up here and some of the obvious and perhaps not so obvious aspects of it, the implications for South Carolina, and how these implications can be addressed in ways that serve our state and our communities, perhaps in a less costly fashion than we presently do. If you look at that photo, I think you see that this is a graduation exercise. It's all male. There's a reason for that that'll become obvious in a minute if you don't already know. These are just young and middle-aged men completing college. What's unique about this is it's done within the walls of the Huntsville Penitentiary outside of Houston, Texas. These are all men who have been incarcerated and may well be incarcerated for many years. For the last 50 years, Lee College, where I served as president, I didn't serve that long, it used to bother me that Mike, every time he mentioned old folks, he looked at me in his comments. I'm sure he was just a coincidence. But what we have here is an unusual set of circumstances where 50 years ago, the state of Texas, not always considered soft on crime by most analyses, decided that it was worth the investment in this program, and it's been existing for 50 years since. This happens to be a small group of the 100 who graduated with associate and certificate degrees this past year. So that's pretty obvious. What's less obvious is that this group of people actually outperforms traditional community college students when it comes to graduation rates. And the reason for that, if you've been in other sessions, is time on task. They have time. We often talk about people who are incarcerated doing time. We're talking about them as using time. And that's where we make an attempt to differentiate. If you attended last summer, you heard some comments, some excellent progress that's being made with the commitment of a whole bunch of people in the areas of correction reform. And a meta-analysis, if you're not familiar with the term, a meta-analysis is a study of studies. And 30 states were involved in this meta-analysis by the RAND Corporation under the auspices of the Department of Justice. And what they found was that programs like this have a huge impact already, a huge impact on reducing recidivism. In South Carolina, 1 in 4 released prisoners will return in 3 years, and 1 in 3 will return in 5 years. There is a good reason for not wanting these men and women to come back, not the least of which is that the video you just saw, a mother in prison, a child out. 2/3 of the men and 3/4 of the women in prison have children. So they're left with hopefully some caretaker who will cover their needs for at least that period of time. I want to suggest that South Carolina, and something that I've been working on for the last year, is replicate this program. None exists. There are 20,000 men and women in South Carolina prisons, only the South Carolina prisons, not the federal prisons or the community prisons, the state prisons. And they spend $20,000 a year to keep a person in prison. And that's a hell of a lot more than they're spending on public education per year for a child. So let's get them out of there and back into their communities and functioning productively. And this is a way to do it. Thank you.